GBS is the topic which most of us, I'm sure, are familiar with. It's a very hot topic. Our great leaders in our industry, as always, do have a view on it. So very many views on GBS, Global Business Services, and now I will share mine based on what we do in CBRE and what was my experience from the past. So for the next 15 minutes, I will not give you a readout on the report that I'm sure that Adam and PwC could do easily, but I will give you my reflection and my thoughts about what is GBS, what are the key success factors, what are the challenges I see in CBRE and what I've seen on client sides, what's in it for me, what is the future, and then give you a perspective of CBRE outsourcing business, because I'm sure most of you do know CBRE from, I would say, transaction management business, the typical brokerage, yeah? You want to need the help on renting the place, doing the transaction, you go to CBRE. But at the same time, CBRE in the last years grew heavily in outsourcing business. And in fact, the location I run is one of the key ones on the outsourcing map, where almost 50% of the revenue of CBRE today is represented by outsourcing. So hopefully now after this session, you will know that CBRE offering is far bigger than you thought. So what is GBS? Okay, key characteristics are the following. So it is a multifunctional operations, which is the case for most of you because it is less and less popular that we're speaking about F&A center only. Typically we collocate to drive economies of scale, to give people opportunities, to drive many other elements. So this is a must in my view if you want to speak about GBS. Next point is stakeholder map, which is getting very complex, meaning on BPO end, because I came from Accenture from CBRE, so on BPO end, it's external, okay? So it's a very difficult map to manage. Clients, different industries, because we should be speaking client words. But when you go into external and internal mode, it gets tougher, yeah? Quite often, and that's what we see in CBRE, there is a different maturity of outsourcing understanding on external world versus internal. And by obvious reasons, internally, there is a lower appetite for investments. So, and I often get a question, for example, for our internal guys, who is more important for me? And I'll keep the answer to myself, but it's not the easy answer to have because both areas should be managed in a similar way. On my plate today, it's about 80% is external in our operations in Warsaw, 20% is internal, and the balance will more or less stay the same in the next years. Global platform. So again, this is in place for most, if not all, BPO players. Okay, Infosys, Accenture, others. They operate globally since years. Okay, nothing new. For SSEs, captives, I think many of them still operate as a standalone location. So when you talk about GBS, it must be global, okay? But not a global presence, but operations globally, meaning you deliver the client from 2 locations, okay? That way you introduce business continuity and many other values behind it. Value chain, okay? That's very much in place since at least 3-4 years for our nearshore locations, okay? Getting rid of transactional work by automation, or by more aggressive offshoring. But with GBS, it is even more important because moving to global business services concept, you should be adequately moving out of a overhead kind of a view or a back office location to a partner one. So if you are to be a partner, you need to drive value. So you need to stop celebrating the fact that you process invoices on time, but you need to move into a model that, okay, I'm doing business analytics, and I'm improving working capital, I'm doing business analytics around service charges, transferring all the savings to clients. So definitely a must. And the last point is hybrid delivery model, okay? In terms of a location, on-site, nearshore, offshore, but also in terms of a model you want to build as a client. So in CBRE, we operate, and it will be at the last section, in CBRE we have on-site presence with our, for example, for facility management with our facility managers, centralized operations in Warsaw, and then in the background we are using an external provider for part of operations. We believe it makes sense to outsource, and this is a balance that each of you need to make for your business. So key success factors, so first one is vision, but vision without action is a disaster. But in GBS, I believe that it must be a really laser-focused vision, meaning that, you know, when you turn into a GBS model, it will be visible and acknowledged by your clients and by your people. It cannot be a name change only, because then you will get quite the opposite effect. Top leadership buy-in, which is a must for centralized operations, but for GBS perspective, it's even more important. And what is critical in this case is that you need to position properly your GBS structure in your organization. Many GBS leaders are aligned to finance leads, to CFO, okay? Which is the good thing to do, because finance people are great people, yeah, with a lot of knowledge, but it is putting certain limitations if you want to truly expand into GBS. Speaking about IT, HR. In CBRE, I report to a global lead who is very close to COO, and COO reports to CEO, our president, Bob Sulentic. So we are positioned properly, and you will see the slide on the governance model later. The next success factor is like governance model, okay, to make it right. Transparency on the roles, proper KPIs, SLAs, focusing on quality, not quantity. So less is better, for example, in 3x3 view, easy to read. And then program management function, PMO function, which is really turning to a critical one in GBS model, to make it all happen, to assure that we communicate and we know our roles, because it is getting complicated. Stakeholder management, so I talked about it. That's my favorite one, okay? In fact, when you go into centralized operations, one of the reasons is to get the best out of the brain power of our people. So we have all the programs about knowledge sharing, being a leading example. And with GBS, it is even more important because on my platform in Warsaw, I do have functions which typically would not talk to each other. For example, IT help desk and list administration. So we need to put in place processes that will enable and enforce in a way collaboration. I don't know, doing the mapping to people objectives, introducing some incentives, and most of all build the culture around it, starting with the leadership. Because many companies do talk about sharing and collaborating, very few actually make it in action. Different maturity of operations, I touched on it. This one, cost versus readiness for investments. When you think about setting up operations in Central Europe, still many investors think about cost, okay, which is the right thing to do. But when you go into a GBS concept, cost cannot be a primary driver. It can be one of many, but not a primary one. Because, as I said before, moving to GBS, you are moving to a partner mode, partner to CFO, partner to finance managers. If you want to be a partner, you need to drive value. If you want to drive value, for example, you should invest into your business analytics team. If you want to have world-class business analytics team, you need to get the best people, get them trained, and invest into applications and technology. So if you don't have appetite for investments, don't talk about GBS. Wait, yeah, because, and the last point is like patience and continuous strive in making that happen. So moving on, cautious of time, what's in it for me? So again, I will not do the readout of the report, but briefly, yes, savings, definitely, and you know the numbers, so I will not quote them. Yes, increased visibility, improved control and compliance, and many other benefits. But what I want to call out is that I hope you all agree that our business services industry, which was growing so nicely in the last years, is a people business. And from my perspective, and any leaders I talk to, the primary objective for our people is to grow, okay? Develop. Very ambitious people in Poland, but that pretty much applies for the region as well. So GBS is the solution to, it's the offer for them to grow. Because having diversified portfolio of offerings in one place, if you make it right, it really creates career development opportunities. I would even say more. We should start using GBS concept as more and more clients get into it to attract talents from outside of SSE and BPO industry. And this is what is happening quite heavy now in my case, Because, for example, we just hired a finance director from a venture capital business, and she finds our environment extremely interesting and even far more dynamic than the venture capital one, which many people think that it would be quite the opposite. So moving on, what's for the future? More and more leaders from Central Europe, including Poland, are in regional and global roles. And actually, this is CBRE case. My predecessor, she's now a global lead. So I strongly believe that in the next years, leaders from Poland will be influencing GBS game, okay? And we'll take this monopoly a little bit out of hands of our great leaders from UK, US, Netherlands, and India. So, and we'll make it our way in a way. And it's a reflection of what we represent today in the region. SSC, BPO versus GBS, I believe this journey will remain unique. It's not a copy and paste model. You need to make it right for your company, taking into account all the elements like culture, organization, readiness, strategy, whether you want to go totally or to a high degree external, you want to do internal, different models. Shell is the model which is very much in-house. Unilever is the model which is very much external. So make it your own way, and actually it's a beautiful part, because if you make it your own way, it's very much dependent on you, so you can influence it as a leader. And the final point, technology is a topic which everybody is saying it's a game changer, and it is a game changer to our operational performance, productivity, and there will be a session on robotics, but it's not only that. I don't believe it will change the GBS concept. It can accelerate to some degree. So that's on initial thoughts. Now moving to CBRE. So we started our GBS journey quite recently. Okay, we are present in all regions. In US, in Memphis, in Europe, it's Warsaw and Glasgow. In India, it's in APAC, it's India, China. We have our presence in Australia. I'm sure you heard about the news of CBRE now being in the process of acquiring global workplace solutions from JCI that will further improve our footprint big time, what I can't disclose now more. We are operating globally. We are under one leadership, which I mentioned is close to CEO. From Warsaw, we do work mainly to Europe, but we do support US as well and APAC, and there is a logic behind it. We have clients which are being supported from Warsaw and Memphis as one delivery model. And what is most important, because quite often we were getting a question, so where does the reporting line of your people go to? So in CBRE, it was a conscious decision of keeping all the hard line reporting locally with dotted line to functional leads. And I think it's the right thing to do, because it's driving the right behavior, creating one team approach from a location perspective. So moving on to governance model. So this is what it looks like in a very simple way. We are organized by service lines, so client accounting and leads administration, which are part of the business broader offering of CBRE called portfolio services or transaction management and portfolio services. Client accounting for facility management that I will speak in a second, and a couple of others. Internally, we also are centralizing in Warsaw, in this case, support for IT, finance, HR as well, and now a big debate. Obviously, we are operating by industries. Biggest industry for us is banking, for obvious reasons, because they have the biggest portfolio of real estate. But we have also great clients from IT, leaders, and oil and energy. And then obviously we are enabled by GBS key functions, which is nothing new if you think about typical BPO model, for example, business process excellence, transformation, transition, etc. And as I said, I'm reporting through global lead, GBS lead, but I'm having also a dotted line to EMEA CFO and EMEA client leads, just to keeping it simple. And obviously, it's all around client. Yeah, actually, client should be in the middle of that. So I will focus now on client accounting facility management. So I will not speak about facility management offering. So when you're outsourcing to CBRE, management of your office end-to-end, including maintenance, reception, security, mail services, everything. I will focus on finance support for the facility manager who is on the ground. So in Warsaw, the team is represented by, at that stage, roughly 60 people who are supporting 23 clients, covering 40 countries. And the hybrid delivery model, portion of that looks the following way. So client accountants in Warsaw are working very closely with the client finance lead. Client finance lead is typically dedicated to the account. He's responsible for putting P&L together for client, and Warsaw team is doing all the reporting, budgeting, forecasting. It's like a right hand of the finance lead. Warsaw client accounting team, in this case purchase to pay team, is supporting facility managers who are on the ground focusing on their core activity, taking care of the office on behalf of client. So if there is a thing to buy, they do the work order, and the purchase ordering is done by Warsaw team with all the invoice processing. So facility managers obviously are based on different sites in Europe. And then Warsaw team is getting in the background support from external player, which is based in India, around vendor management processing, about invoice processing, for example, giving us OCR technology so that we don't need to key in the data. And then limited interaction with facility managers, okay? So this is just, again, a snapshot of what I mean by hybrid delivery model. This is an evolving model, because if you were to look at our US, it would be far more with the hands of the third-party player. In Europe, it's quite the opposite. It's mainly driven by the fact that we need to be extremely close to facility managers, because agility of those facility managers of responding to clients' needs is key. And that's why the team is in Warsaw, because the team in Warsaw is not for language reasons, okay? They speak English. So we are here to be like, to deliver value, to be available, so it's a kind of a complexity-driven reason to be in Warsaw. So that's kind of, in a very brief summary of what I wanted to say. So I will now hand over to Adam.
Thank you very much, Maciej. It was great to understand GBS in the same way, because I think we talk about GBS every day and we don't necessarily mean the same definition. So thank you very much for bringing us on the same page, and thank you for sharing the GBS case study of CBRE.